Alcohol is the drug most frequently abused by American teens. Other popular drugs include marijuana and prescription drugs. Self-report surveys indicate that just under half of all high school seniors have tried drugs. Surveys of arrestees indicate that a significant proportion of teenagers are drug users, and many are high school dropouts. The number of drug users may be even higher than surveys suggest, because surveys of teen abusers may be missing the most delinquent youths. The national survey conducted by PRIDE, the Monitoring the Future Survey, and the National Survey on Drug Use and Health report that drug and alcohol use are much lower today than 5 and 10 years ago. There are many explanations for why youths take drugs, including growing up in disorganized areas in which there is a high degree of hopelessness, poverty, and despair, peer pressure, parental substance abuse, emotional problems, and suffering from general problem behavior syndrome. Also, a variety of youths use drugs. Some are occasional users who might sell to friends. Others are seriously involved in both drug abuse and delinquency. Many of these are gang members. There are also, quote, losers who filter in and out of the juvenile justice system. A small percentage of teenage users remain involved with drugs into adulthood. It is not certain whether drug abuse causes delinquency. Some experts believe there is a common cause for both delinquency and drug abuse, perhaps alienation and rage. Many attempts have been made to control the drug trade. Some try to inhibit the importation of drugs, others try to close down major drug rings, and a few attempt to stop street-level dealing. There are also attempts to treat users through rehabilitation programs, reduce juvenile use by educational efforts, and implement harm reduction measures. Some communities have mounted grassroots drives. These efforts have not been totally successful, although overall use of drugs may have declined somewhat. It is difficult to eradicate drug abuse because there is much profit to be made from the sale of drugs. One suggestion, legalize drugs. But critics warn that such a step may produce greater numbers of substance abusers. Supporters of legalization argue that it would greatly reduce the violence and other criminal activity associated with drug dealing. Prevention is distinguished from control, or repression, in that prevention seeks to reduce the risk factors for delinquency before antisocial behavior or delinquency becomes a problem. Delinquency control programs, which involve the juvenile justice system, intervene in the lives of juvenile offenders with the aim of preventing the occurrence of future delinquent acts. There are a number of different ways to classify or organize delinquency prevention programs, including the public health approach and the developmental perspective. Key features of the developmental perspective of delinquency prevention include targeting of risk factors and the promotion of protective factors, provision of services to children and families, and programs provided over the life course. Some of the most effective delinquency prevention programs for children and teens include home visits for new mothers, parent training, enriched preschool programs, school-based programs that are intensive, cognitive-oriented, and targeted on high-risk kids, mentoring, and job training. Many of these programs also show positive results in reducing other problem behaviors, such as substance abuse, and lead to improvements in other areas of life, such as educational achievement, health, and employment. These benefits often translate into substantial cost savings for the government and taxpayers. The juvenile justice process consists of a series of steps: police investigation, intake procedure in the juvenile court, pretrial procedures used for juvenile offenders, and adjudication, disposition, and post-dispositional procedures. There are conflicting values in contemporary juvenile justice. Some experts want to get tough with young criminals, while others want to focus on treatment. Crime control advocates want to reduce the court's jurisdiction over juveniles charged with serious crimes, and liberalize the prosecutor's ability to try them in adult courts. Child advocates suggest that the court should scale back its judicial role and transfer its functions to community groups and social service agencies. A comprehensive juvenile justice strategy has been developed to preserve the need for treatment services for juveniles, while at the same time using appropriate sanctions to hold juveniles accountable for their actions. Elements of this strategy include delinquency prevention, intervention programs, graduated sanctions, improvement of institutional programs, and treating juveniles like adults. New courts, such as drug courts and teen courts, are used extensively across the nation. The future of delinquency prevention and the juvenile justice system continues to be debated. A number of state jurisdictions are revising their juvenile codes to restrict eligibility in the juvenile justice system and to remove the most serious offenders. At the same time, there are some promising signs, such as juvenile crime rates being lower than in decades past, public support for prevention and intervention programs, and some states beginning to incorporate research-based initiatives to guide delinquency prevention and juvenile justice programming and policy.